Okay, good morning. My name is Courtney Reyes. I am with the Home Builders Association of Greater Kansas City. I'm also a member of the Northland Education Business Alliance, or NEBA. NEBA is a network of education and business organizations in Clay and Platte counties whose vision is to promote and provide business-driven education opportunities for you, our next generation of business leaders. I will be your host during the session. We will have two other NEBA members working in the background, Miss Amy Washam, who is with Northwest Missouri State University, as well as Athena Graham, who is with North Kansas City School District. Um, just a few quick notes before we introduce our guest speakers for this session. The session will run for about 40 minutes with a hard stop at 9:40. Our industry experts will begin by sharing their professional history and insight, but we want this to feel more like a conversation. At the bottom of your screen, you should see an option to use the Q&A feature. We encourage you to use that space to post any questions that you might have at any point during the session. We might not be able to get to them all, but we'll do our best. When the session ends, you'll be asked to take a very short survey. Please give us feedback on this event so that we can get better at hosting things like this in the future. Last but not least, the session will be recorded and available on NEBA's YouTube channel in the near future. Okay, let's get started. First, I would like to go ahead and introduce Ron Gregg with Gregg Engineering and Technology.
Hello, everyone. Hey, my name is Ron Gregg. My company, like Courtney said, is Gregg Engineering and Technology. So I'm a degreed electrical engineer from the University of Missouri, Rolla. I graduated in 1990. I'm also a professional engineer registered in the state of Missouri. So my area of work is I work in control system automation in the manufacturing industry. What that means is I automate equipment like pumps and valves and conveyors and things like that. I help design and start up and troubleshoot this equipment. As part of the design, I provide electrical schematics, control panel design, instrument specification. I also, during construction projects, help with construction management in terms of guiding or helping the electrical contractor with installation. After that, usually for various projects, there's some type of wiring checkout prior to starting equipment up. But one of the great aspects of my job is that I get to write code. I write code that controls this equipment. So industrial control systems are controlled typically by devices called PLCs. That's a programmable logic controller. So I get to write PLC code, and that controls when a pump starts or when a pump stops, or how far do you open this valve to let the appropriate amount of steam in to control the temperature to a particular set point, or how fast do I let this conveyor run. So I get to write code that does all that. Additionally, there's, in this day and age, there's certainly operator terminals, computer terminals where operators control various aspects of the project. So they're pretty pictures on a computer screen that operators can click on to start a pump, for example, or interact with the process, or start a pump or something that's 50 miles away, for that matter. So computer graphics is also part of my work. So one other interesting aspect of my career is that so I guess I graduated 30 years ago, right? So 10 years into my career, working for various employers, I went out on my own as an independent contractor. So for the past 20 years, or 20 years ago, I formed Gregg Engineering and Technology. So I'm an independent contractor, a sole proprietor, which means I'm a one-man show. I'm the president, and I'm also the janitor. I have no employees. What that means is it brings a little business aspect into my job as well. So not only do I do the work, I have to find the work, I have to quote the work, I have to invoice for the work, I have to follow up on the work. So it's a nice little business addition to my engineering background. I think that's all I got. That's my summary.
Well, thank you so much, Ron. We really appreciate that. Next, I would like to introduce Meghan Morsches of RPG.
Hi, my name is Megan, and my husband and I own RPG, which stands for Restaurant, Pub, and Games. So we each carry different roles in the business, and my specific contribution to the business is mostly in design and construction. So we have a library of over 1,000 board games, and in our upstairs space, we have the capacity to have we have 9 large tables for big groups to play board games, role-playing games. And so I was involved from the beginning in designing and building the furniture that enables the players to play the games, choosing all of the fixtures for the facility just to, create a warm, inviting space. All of the shelving downstairs was designed and built by me. And then with COVID, we had an opportunity to expand to an outside dining space. And so then at that point, I was tasked with creating an outdoor deck and dining area. So I have a unconventional, I guess, background in carpentry. I grew up working with my dad in remodeling homes as a teenager. It wasn't a passion of mine at the time, and I didn't really appreciate the skills I was gaining. But then as time went on and, opportunities came for us to do remodeling projects in our own home, I found that the skills that I had, that my dad had passed on to me, were very valuable. And then first real major building expertise came with learning how to build and install cabinets in our home. And then that evolved into doing a complete home remodel. And then we sold that home for a large profit in order to start our business. And then those skills converted into more furniture making, design, and construction in a restaurant scene. So that those skills have come in very handy. And when I have come across a need to learn a new skill, I don't have any formal training in carpentry, but I am an avid lifelong learner. And so I will pour myself into a topic and try to learn a skill. And then if I get it wrong, do it again and again until it's mastered. And that's just been my process from the beginning, is just consuming as much available knowledge, however it's available. And then learning by trial and error. And it has, created a pretty good foundation of skills that I've been able to use to create this really unique business with my husband.
That's so awesome. It's so interesting. I love hearing about that carpentry background. Always really cool. Just a quick reminder before I hop into some questions. Please don't forget that we welcome you to utilize that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you do have any questions throughout the duration of this presentation, please make sure that you send them in and we will try and get to them as best we can, okay? So let's go ahead and hop into, what does a normal day look like for you guys?
Sure, I can start with that. So as I described at the beginning, I do more than just engineering. I also am a small business. So I've got a little bit of both. Obviously, there's emails and things like that. There's invoicing that has to go on. But then there's project work that happens too. So I guess the day kind of depends on what's going on in the project world. Some of these projects are 6 months long or a year long, and are very time consuming. So when there's big projects, quite often I'm at a customer site on site for 6 months. And that involves interfacing with computers, checking out electrical wiring, trying to get a new process started, like we're a new roller mill. We're trying to bring up this equipment and run product through it. So it's a lot of an interesting aspect of what I do. It's very hands-on when I'm in that particular phase, right? So So, hey, I'm trying this. All right, maybe I changed the PLC code a little bit so that it operates a little bit differently. Did that help? Did it not? So it's very instant gratification in terms of making a quick change and seeing something change in the field. Um, I would say that's 80% of what I do, and then the business aspect is really not that gigantic, but it does take up some time. So that's another 20% of paperwork and follow-up emails and invoicing and receiving and things like that.
So my typical day is definitely a mixture of a lot of different responsibilities. We have 4 young children, and my shop is in my home, in my garage. So typically, I will fabricate things or create or build things on site here at home as I'm able, while juggling also childcare, child rearing responsibilities. And then I'll take those things and install them at the facility. I really like that because, first of all, my kids get to see me working firsthand. I think it sets a good example when kids see their parents working hard. Our business is really a family business. The kids have been, aware and excited and involved from day one. And they know when mom needs to focus to reach a deadline, or complete an important project. So I feel like I have a really special, and I'm really fortunate to kind of have that situation that I do, that I'm able to really be there for my family and my kids, and also own a business, and also develop these skills that are applicable across, a broad range of areas. So my typical day is just kind of a mixture of all of those, depending on where the need is most urgent. But I do try to do the majority of my work, when my kids are in school, or if they're asleep in the evenings, because they go to bed pretty early still.
Thanks, Megan. I know you kind of had talked a little bit about those transferable skills that you've obtained throughout your time. Ron, can you tell us a little bit about what some of the most essential or transferable skills that are needed to enter your profession?
Sure, sure. So as trite as it may seem, I mean, people skills are pretty important, right? So we all I went to school for engineering. I have an engineering degree, but a lot of what you deal with is just people and how you interact with people. And as an independent contractor, a lot of my stuff is repeat business, right? I have a handful of contracts that I return to and do repeat business with, and that's all really people related. So the ability to have a conversation, the ability to just, a lot of engineers are very nerdy and very kind of introverted, the stereotypical, right? But the ability to interact with people and get business done and get invited back for the next project, that's a pretty big skill. Not to mention just some kind of, switch to the engineering side a little bit, just some critical thinking, right? Problem solving. Here's what the task is or what the scope of the work is. How are you going to attack that? So simple problem solving skills and people skills. Isn't that all, like everything you learned in kindergarten, right? Is what you need.
Absolutely, those people skills are essential. Megan, do you have anything that you want to add to that before we kind of move off of that question?
Yeah, I think that being able to connect with people and market yourself in a way is just as important as having those tangible skills. And I think also just having an attention to detail and a drive for excellence will get you a long ways in any industry. So I think that if you work towards doing your best in whatever is set before you, and learning and practicing and developing until you have really mastered it. I feel like that can open up a lot of possibilities, even without formal training, just practicing and to develop excellence.
I'd like to, that's an excellent point, Megan, to jump in on what you said. Uh, as simple as it may sound, just trying hard and doing your best and putting 100% or 110% into it, that's 90% of the battle. You wouldn't believe the people that are out there that really aren't giving it their all. And to some degree, if you just show up and work hard, you can do whatever you want. It's really quite a surprise and quite simple, really.
I love that. I think that's a big part of it. I think when you're talking about the workforce issues right now, that's what people are saying. They're like, please just show up. We want to train you. We want to make you better. So one of the things that you kind of, both of you had mentioned that I think is really important to kind of talk about the essentialness of communication and that skill set and kind of how you guys, how vital it is in your everyday, work.
I'll start with that one again. It's like we kind of touched on. It's very important. Without it, a lot of things can go wrong, and without it, a lot of time can be wasted. Right? If you aren't communicating properly with the customer, if you don't understand exactly what they need, then I can spend 2 weeks writing code that is wrong. Right? So being able to communicate with the customer and find out exactly what their needs are, certainly is a time saver, and again, kind of a something that drives repeat business too. If I have a customer that they know that we're on the same page and that I understand what they're doing and they understand what I'm asking, that just drives a good relationship and additional future projects.
Absolutely. I am fitting all of the work and projects I do around a fully operational restaurant. And so I work very closely with our team of operations managers to find out what their needs are. We meet very regularly to make sure that everyone's on the same page about what's the priority, where our resources, where our time needs to be focused, from big stuff like we're going to redesign this new space, which is what I'm working on right now. We're getting ready to open a new private event space. So that right now is my focus. Or it could be, I need you to come take a look at this toilet because that is what the customers are going to be seeing today. They're going to need an operational toilet. So really it's so important, and we communicate daily, but we meet formally very regularly to make sure everyone is on the same page, especially these are for time and resources, because that's important so that things don't fall through the cracks.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for addressing that. I think, like I mentioned, communication is so essential. So tell us a little bit about the courses, certifications, or degrees that you guys feel like you might need for your industry.
Sure. So I'm an electrical engineer. I have a 4-year degree from the University of Missouri Rolla. And in terms of the pure engineering field, that's probably the minimum. It really, you can certainly do things in the engineering world without a 4-year degree in engineering, but more often than not, engineers are degreed with a bachelor's degree. From there, that's really what it takes. There are people that get master's degrees. I don't have a master's degree, and so that's not as common. It is common in some areas of engineering to get a professional engineering degree. Professional engineering license involves some additional testing and some it involves some additional testing, but that's not required either. Some of that's required or helpful in my independent contractor business, but generally, from a degree standpoint, the answer for engineering is a 4-year bachelor's degree from a university.
So specifically for woodworking, there obviously are no degree requirements to learn the skills. I do have a bachelor's degree in nursing, which is very different than woodworking. However, a lot of those same skills of attention to detail and the technical skills and practicing those things have carried over. But there are options to get certifications and to get degrees, but really the way that you show proficiency, at least in my field, is more portfolio style. So you can actually take something that you have created and display it for someone to see, and there's not a lot of areas where you can actually show someone an example, a tangible example of your work. But in my experience, I can actually demonstrate competence, and developing and improving skills on a portfolio basis of actual projects completed, and the skill and the precision or excellence with which they're done.
No, that's amazing. I appreciate you talking about that. Like, we talked about a little bit earlier. There is the education route, but there are different opportunities where that education is not always needed. It's different on the job kind of experience. It's so helpful, and just a different kind of I wouldn't say mindset, but skill set. So just really, really amazing. And we need everybody to fill up our workforce needs and add to the community. So let's talk about what you love about your job. So tell me a few things about why you do what you do daily and why you still get out of bed to do it.
So even though I've been emphasizing the communication and dealing with customers and other people, right? There's still an engineer nerd in me, right? So I love writing code. I was on a fishing trip with some buddies at one point. What's your favorite day like? Well, I want to sit in a cube and write code for 8 hours, right? And they about threw up. They thought it was terrible. But so I do really like the aspect of computer programming and writing code and doing graphics for that. Another interesting aspect of my job that kind of keeps me going is that I don't really need to know much, at least to start with, about the process, whatever the customer is, customer A or customer B or customer C. My work, it's the same building blocks that I use, whether I'm working at a place that makes cars or makes cheese or makes cement or fiberglass or pumps water out of wells. So it's very nice to be able to to go to different processes, and then still, it's fresh to kind of come in and, oh my gosh, you're going to be working on cheese today. That's great. Very exciting.
I love it whenever someone has a need, and I'm able to use my skills to meet that need. And I do that a lot in my job. Someone says, hey, we need these tables built, we need these shelves built, this thing is broken. And I just love being able to say, I can do that for you. I can make that for you. And the process, of going from a sketch, I always start with just a basic pencil, paper, rough sketch of everything, everything I'm doing, and taking that full circle to a physical outcome, a physical tangible product is always really exhilarating to know that, you know, that object came from your brain. Furniture and thinking about what is it that people are going to need, you know, so our tables that we have right now are large tables that we use at the restaurant for board games and role-playing games. They all have power on all the corners. All the corners are cut so that people don't run into them when the room is filled. So, no, those little details that kind of come out of your brain and then you see them in real life. It's really satisfying to be able to complete that process and then, you know, provide that for someone else.
Love that. I can't imagine doing code for 8 hours a day, Ron.
It's
By the
great.
way.
It's awesome. You should try it.
No, but I love it. Okay, so seemingly, tell us about the most challenging. So I know what you love about it. What makes it a little bit more difficult some days?
Sometimes it can be awful time consuming, right? And as I get older and, you know, I've got kids and a wife and a family, right? And when I was 25 years old, I could work 90 hours a week without any trouble, right? So I've talked about project work and things come in chunks of projects, right? Well, so at some point there's a deadline and the owner is saying, look, we need to have this equipment running by this date, right? So you got to get it running. And so it can be very challenging in terms of long hours and working Saturdays and working weekends in order to meet deadlines to start equipment up and get it running. So that can be very challenging, especially given, you know, an adult family life with kids and other things going on in your life, right?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, finding that healthy work family balance is challenging at times whenever you have you're pressured by the needs of your family and you feel really strongly about being there for them, and then you also know that this deadline is coming up, and just trying to navigate that balance can be challenging. And then specifically for me, one of the things that is really important is safety. So, you know, being in woodworking long term, you have to really be conscientious about taking care of your body, by protecting your hearing, protecting your sight, protecting your breathing. And there have been times that I have been less rigid about those practices, and I've paid the consequences. So, you know, poor safety in the shop can lead to long-term problems. And so that's something that I am constantly trying to be mindful of, is just thinking long-term and taking care of my body, even if it's inconvenient in the moment.
I see we have a little guest with us today. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about what's the most rewarding thing. So what keeps you going? So I know it's what you love, and what's most challenging. Overall, big picture, what keeps you doing what you do?
You know, when a big project is all said and done, right? You've worked on this well system for 6 months, right? And then when it's up and running, it's a pretty good sense of accomplishment. It's the accomplishment after a long project and getting equipment up and running is pretty nice. Not to mention that at the end of it, you send them an invoice and they'll send you money. So that part's pretty good too.
Helpful. Megan.
I think that one of the most rewarding things about what I do, like I said before, is bringing a project to completion. Being able to have, you know, a rewarding skill set, and also a very active family life, as you can see. But mastering new skills, I think, is probably at the very top of my list. seeing a skill and thinking, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And then learning about it, practicing it, until you're is always very rewarding.
Awesome. Okay, so something that I'm really interested in, and I think that it would be interesting for those that are with us today to hear about, what did the journey look like to, where you started, why you got into it, and kind of where you are today?
I've got a pretty boring story about that, so I don't have a good
I doubt
case of
it.
that.
I doubt it.
I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky that at the time I was in high school, I've always been kind of analytical, and I knew from an early age that I wanted to be an engineer. My dad was an engineer. That didn't necessarily, he didn't force me into this by any means, but just a way of thinking, the way my head works. I've known for a long time that I needed to be in. So that my college choice was very easy. Right now, I've got a kid that's working on trying to choose college, and he's not quite sure what he wants to do, and it's much, much, much more difficult than what I had. So I had a very boring, easy choice in terms of what I wanted to do, and well, that's it. I don't have an excellent story besides it was easy for me.
No, I think that's great anyways. And, when you know, and, I think that that is, for the lucky few that do and like to go down the trajectory that they started with, it works out, and we need those kinds too. So,
Sure.
Megan.
Yeah, I think that having someone intervene in your late high school years to help you really pinpoint your skills and like what your natural abilities are is extremely helpful. I might have gone a slightly different direction as far as like formal education because, when I was making college choices, girls just didn't do woodworking. I mean, it was like girls became nurses. And I don't feel like that personally, but that was kind of the societal pressure at the time to choose that type of career path. And it served me being, going to nursing school, being a nurse, it did serve me, served our family, provided. But if I had, pursued more of my natural abilities, I think that I would have maybe gotten started developing those skills sooner. Um, but yeah, my woodworking skills developed unexpectedly and mostly out of need. First to remodel a home because we can't afford to have a contractor come in and do all this work, so I'm going to learn it. And then I thought, I love this, like this is really scratching an itch that I didn't realize was there. And then starting with small projects and a very small inexpensive collection of tools. I know that can be really intimidating for some people that say, hey, I wish I could do that. I wish I could learn that. But the cost may be something that they consider to be a barrier to learning those skills. But I tell you what, there are so many really great skills that you can learn with a very small set of inexpensive tools. And that's how I started, just a very small financial investment up front and then expanded slowly over time. And I do not have a huge collection of expensive designer tools. My things are from Facebook Marketplace, they're from Craigslist, garage sales. Sometimes I'll save up for something that I know will be worth the extra money because, the value is worth the extra money, what you pay for it. But yeah, I'd say my skills developed kind of unexpectedly and over time, slowly through a lot of persistence and just going after those resources, online resources, videos, practice, and I think that it would have been helpful for me to have some of the insight that Ron had about his own abilities or skills, earlier. even though I did have some of those from my teen years working with my family on remodeling homes, I didn't really put that together that, hey, not everyone, like finds this enjoyable. Not everyone really finds satisfaction from these types of tasks. So yeah, but that's never too late. It's never too late to learn a new skill. You don't have to get there at rocket speed, and you don't have to invest a ton of money either in order to get started.
I love that so much. And from both of your stories, I know, it's just so important for everyone to see that there are different paths and there's different ways of thinking. And I love that. I love that you guys are kind of polar opposites within that spectrum. So it literally shows you that those both sides and everyone can be successful. So I know we're kind of getting down to a couple minutes left before we've got to go. So I would love for you guys, one, to just share with those that might be looking to get into your field, like a young person in high school, just about to make that college decision, or to decide that they want to go into a skilled trade and learn that carpentry skill set. What advice would you give to them, and are there any resources that you are currently knowledgeable of that you think that would be valuable for those individuals to know about?
So from an engineering perspective, whether you use it or not when you're done, right? So I'm going to back up a little bit, and I'm sure this is true in everybody's field, but what you do in college probably is 5% or 2% of what you do in your everyday life, right? But in order to get through engineering school, you need math. You're going to do a lot of math. You're going to do a lot of math and then more math. All right. So any math classes that you can take ahead of time to kind of get you up to speed certainly is helpful. When I went to college, one of my roommates, he was able to take calculus in high school, and either they didn't have AP classes when I was graduating, or I didn't, or when I went to high school, and maybe they didn't have them, or I didn't know about them, whatever. I didn't take any of those. But I do remember my roommate had taken some calculus, and I hadn't, and I was at a significant disadvantage for the first couple of years trying to catch up. So if you think you're going to be an engineer without doing math, whether you use it in your everyday life afterwards, you got to do math. So any math you can do. Enough said.
I would say that best case scenario for really finding out if woodworking, carpentry, or some type of trade like that is a good fit for you is to find someone who's skilled, find a mentor, and either in an informal or formal setting, do some type of apprenticeship where you can learn some of those skills and really just kind of get your hands dirty and find out, is this right for you? That I would say is best case scenario. Not everyone has access to like an in-person, master craftsman that they can glean from. And so, there's a lot of second best would be a lot of online courses and resources, a lot of which take you from very basic ground level entry. What do I need to buy first? What skill do I need to master first? And then of course there's the formal route where there are a few places that you can get an actual, degree in woodworking if that's something that's really important to you to have that official, degree or certification. But I think that just getting with somebody, a mentor, ideally in person, or if not, online, would be also a really great way to start and to just kind of sift through your options and see if it's a good fit before you really jump in.
Yeah, to kind of follow up on that, exactly. Some type of mentor or shadowing. I'm thinking back, if I was in high school and trying to figure out what I was going to do, boy, if I could spend 2 hours with this guy, 2 hours with this guy in a cube writing code all day, right? What what can I learn from that? And I get to feel like, oh my gosh, that's terrible or that's awesome, right? So if there's any opportunities to shadow somebody, that's certainly something you want to take advantage of. I've had a couple of high school kids that I've taken to factories, into plants with me, and said, here, watch what I'm doing here, see where I'm adjusting the code here. One kid loved it, one kid hated it. So anything you can do in person is well worth the time.
Well, thank you guys so much. I believe that's all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank you both, Ron and Megan, for taking the time to share your passion with us today, as well as just helping inform the kiddos that are looking towards the future. I hope that the audience enjoyed hearing about basically one of or two of the thousands of jobs that are here in Kansas City. Um, so it's really exciting. Please be sure to take a minute or two to complete the survey that'll pop up on your screen after this session ends. This will help us ensure that we are bringing you helpful and relevant content. To find more information on educational programs or career opportunities related to our industry discussed today, please be sure to visit nebaworkskc.org. Be sure to register for more Career Speaker Series events on our website. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Yes, enjoyed it very much.